A cowboy found his mail-order bride beaten. The note beside her changed everything. The sun had just begun its slow descent over the wide Texas plains, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Jake wiped the sweat from his brow and paused for a moment to look over his land. The ranch was everything he had ever dreamed of. Endless fields, cattle grazing lazily, and the quiet peace that only a place far from the city could offer. For years, he had poured his heart and soul into this land, building it from scratch, but there was one thing missing: someone to share it with. He had spent lonely nights imagining a partner who would understand him, someone who could ride alongside him in the early mornings, laugh at his corny jokes, and share quiet evenings by the fire. He wasn't the type to sit in a bar hoping to meet someone. The town was small, and the chances were slim. That was when he had turned to a mail-order bride service. It wasn't a decision he made lightly. He had carefully read letters, looked at pictures, and exchanged messages for months before finally choosing Lily. Lily's letters had been different from the others. She spoke of wanting a simple life, someone she could trust, and a place where she could belong. Her words had a warmth to them, a quiet hope that made Jake believe she was the right person. When she finally arrived, he had felt a nervous excitement, imagining the new life they could build together. But nothing had prepared him for what he would find that evening. He had spent the afternoon checking fences and counting cattle, the usual routine that kept him busy but never bored. The land was his responsibility, and he took it seriously. As he approached the barn, he noticed the door was slightly ajar. That was unusual. He always made sure to latch it. His heart skipped a beat as he pushed it open, calling out softly, "Lily, you in here?" The barn smelled faintly of hay and dust, the usual earthy scent he was used to, but there was something else, something sharp and wrong. He stepped inside and froze. There in the dim light streaming through the cracks in the wood lay Lily. Her hair was tangled and her face was bruised. She was unconscious, her body curled slightly to the side. Jake's stomach dropped, and a cold shiver ran down his spine. He rushed to her side, kneeling beside her, checking her pulse and gently shaking her shoulder. "Lily, Lily, wake up!" he called, his voice cracking. Relief washed over him when he felt her pulse. It was weak but steady. Beside her, he noticed a small piece of paper, crumpled and stained with dust. He picked it up, unfolding it carefully. In shaky handwriting, it read, "I didn't want this life. Please forgive me." Jake's mind raced. Who could have done this? Why would anyone harm her? The note didn't make sense. It didn't seem like a threat. It was more like a plea, but for what? He pressed a hand to his chest, trying to calm his racing heart. The ranch suddenly felt too big, too empty, too dangerous. He had imagined hard work, long days, and quiet nights. He had not imagined this. Without wasting another moment, he carefully lifted Lily into his arms. She was light, fragile even in the way she had always described herself in letters. He carried her out of the barn, through the golden fields, and toward the small cabin where he lived. Every step felt heavy. His mind replayed all the times he had envisioned this moment, the arrival of his bride, their first meal together, their first evening by the fireplace. But none of those imagined moments resembled this reality. Inside the cabin, he laid her gently on the couch. He tore a clean towel and dampened it with water, placing it on her forehead. "You're safe now," he whispered, even though he knew he couldn't be completely sure. He glanced at the note again, his mind trying to make sense of it. Lily had written these words before someone hurt her or after. Was she apologizing to him or to someone else? As he sat beside her, watching her chest rise and fall, memories of her letters came flooding back. She had written about fear, about leaving a life that had trapped her, about hoping for a fresh start. Could this be related? Was this attack because she had tried to escape something or someone? Jake's heart ached for her. He didn't know much about her past, but he knew one thing. She deserved safety, care, and a chance to start over. Hours passed and Lily began to stir. Her eyes opened slowly, meeting his with confusion and fear. Jake smiled gently, trying to convey comfort without words. "You're okay," he said softly. "I've got you. Nobody's going to hurt you here." Tears welled in her eyes and she tried to speak, but the words came out in a hoarse whisper. I'm sorry," she managed. Jake shook his head. "No, you don't need to apologize. You're safe." "That's all that matters." She closed her eyes again, exhausted from both the attack and the relief of being in safe hands. Jake stayed there, keeping watch, listening to the creaks of the cabin and the faint sounds of cattle outside. He thought about calling the sheriff, about reporting the attack, about what he would say if anyone asked how he had found her. But first, he needed to make sure she was okay. By nightfall, Lily was finally able to speak more clearly. She told him fragments of what had happened, avoiding the details that made her wince. She had felt watched, followed, and trapped, she said, even before arriving at the ranch. Someone from her past had not wanted her to leave, someone who had controlled much of her life. She hadn't wanted to worry him, so she hadn't told him before. Jake listened, absorbing every word, feeling both anger and protectiveness. How could anyone hurt her? How could anyone chase her, even after she had made the brave decision to come to a new place, to start over? He promised himself, silently and fiercely, that no one would harm her again, not while he was here. The night was long. Jake sat beside Lily, keeping a quiet vigil as the wind rustled the trees outside. He brought her warm tea and soft blankets, talking to her gently, trying to rebuild some sense of calm. She listened, leaning on his shoulder, slowly allowing herself to trust. He thought about the note again, the crumpled paper that had set off this chain of events. It had been left behind, almost like a clue, almost like a cry for help. Jake didn't understand it fully, but he knew he would figure it out. Whatever had brought danger to his doorstep, he would face it. And he would do it with Lily by his side, even if she didn't yet see herself as part of that, by his side. As the first light of dawn touched the horizon, painting the plains with soft gold, Jake looked down at Lily sleeping peacefully on the couch. The bruises on her face were fading slightly in the gentle morning light, but her eyes, when they opened, would reflect a story of fear and survival. He knew the road ahead would be difficult. There would be questions, investigations, and probably more challenges. But he also knew one thing. She had arrived at the ranch and she was alive. For the first time in a long time, Jake felt a flicker of hope. Not the kind of hope that came from dreams or letters, but real, solid hope, the kind that could grow into something lasting. The kind that came from protecting someone, from caring for them, and from watching them survive against odds that no one should have to face. He didn't know how Lily's past would continue to affect their lives. He didn't know what dangers might still lurk, waiting to reach her. But he did know that he would be there for her, that he would not let her face the world alone. The ranch, once a place of solitude and hard work, was now a place where someone else's heart beat alongside his own, fragile but resilient. Jake reached over, gently brushing her hair from her face. "We'll get through this," he whispered. Together, the note beside her, the crumpled piece of paper that had caused so much fear, now seemed like a symbol of something else. Survival, courage, and the start of a story that neither of them could have expected. And as the wind carried the scent of the plains through the open windows, he felt the quiet promise of a new beginning. The world was vast, the dangers were real, but for the first time he felt ready to face them. Not alone, but with someone who had already survived so much, and who, against all odds, was here now in his arms. Morning light filled the cabin, soft and warm, as Lily slowly opened her eyes. She felt the stiffness in her body, the aches from the bruises that marked her skin, and a lingering fear that made her tremble slightly. Jake was already awake, sitting at the small wooden table with a cup of coffee in his hands, his eyes never leaving her. "Good morning," he said gently, his voice calm but steady. "How are you feeling?" Lily swallowed, trying to form words. I'm okay." "Just sore?" She glanced around the cabin, taking in the familiar surroundings of the ranch, the simple furniture, the soft blankets, and the smell of fresh coffee. She felt safe here, yet there was a cautious fear that lingered in her chest. Jake poured her a cup of warm tea and handed it to her. "Drink this slowly, it'll help with the aches." He sat down beside her, careful not to crowd her. "We'll take it one step at a time. You don't have to explain everything all at once." She nodded, feeling a wave of relief that he wasn't pressuring her. Still, the questions in her mind were pressing. Who had hurt her? Was it someone from her past? How had they found her so quickly after she arrived? And why had she even trusted this journey to begin with? As Lily sipped the tea, Jake decided it was time to involve someone who could help. He knew he couldn't handle this alone. He had seen enough of life to know that danger could linger, and ignoring it would only make things worse. "I think we should talk to the sheriff," he said gently. "He can help us figure out who did this." Lily hesitated, biting her lip. She didn't want to involve anyone, didn't want her past to catch up with her so quickly. I don't know if that's a good idea," she whispered. "It's complicated. If they find out where I am, it could get worse." Jake reached out and placed a reassuring hand over hers. "I understand," he said softly, "but hiding it won't make it go away. We'll be careful. You're not alone in this anymore." After a moment of thought, she nodded. "Okay," she said quietly, "but only if we do it together." The sheriff was a tall, no-nonsense man who had seen his fair share of trouble in the small Texas town. When Jake and Lily arrived, he looked at her with a careful, professional gaze, noting the bruises and the fear in her eyes. He listened as Lily spoke softly, revealing fragments of her past without going into details that made her wince. She spoke of leaving a controlling environment, of trying to start over, and of someone who had followed her to the ranch. The sheriff frowned, taking notes and asking measured questions. "We'll investigate," he said finally. "But I need you to stay somewhere safe until we figure out who's responsible." Jake nodded, understanding the concern. "She'll stay here," he said firmly. "Nobody is leaving this ranch without me knowing." As they returned home, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story than Lily was telling. He knew she had secrets, pieces of her past that she was afraid to reveal. But he also knew that forcing her to talk would only make her shut down. He needed to earn her trust, to let her know that she could open up when she was ready. Over the next few days, Jake began his own quiet investigation. He retraced the steps of Lily's journey to the ranch, checking the route she had traveled and the people she had interacted with. He asked questions at the post office, at the station where she had arrived, and even at the small diner where she had stopped for a meal. Each answer gave him a small piece of the puzzle, a hint of who might be responsible. Meanwhile, Lily began to open up in small ways. She spoke of her childhood, the strict rules she had grown up with, and the moments when she had felt trapped. She talked about her hopes for a simple life, about finding someone who would understand her, and about the dream of living somewhere quiet and peaceful. Jake listened, offering comfort without judgment, letting her speak at her own pace. Despite the slow progress, tension hung over the ranch. Jake couldn't shake the feeling that someone was still watching, that the danger hadn't passed. He started making small changes to the ranch, locking doors, checking fences, and keeping an extra watch at night. He didn't want Lily to live in fear, but he also didn't want to be caught off guard. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of red and gold, Jake found something hidden in Lily's belongings, a folded piece of paper carefully tucked away. His heart raced as he unfolded it, revealing a message that made his stomach turn. It was a warning written in a shaky hand. "They are still out there, be careful, don't trust anyone." Jake's mind raced. Who were they? How had they found her? And why hadn't she told him before? He felt a surge of anger and protectiveness. He would not let anyone hurt her again. Not here, not on his land, not ever. He showed the note to Lily gently, watching her reaction. Her eyes widened and she nodded slowly. I knew they might come. "I just hoped they wouldn't find me so soon," she admitted, her voice trembling. "I didn't want to scare you." Jake took a deep breath, holding her hand. "We'll face this together," he said firmly. "I won't let anyone hurt you. We'll be ready if they try anything." The days that followed were tense, but also filled with small moments of connection. Jake and Lily worked side by side on the ranch, fixing fences, feeding the cattle, and preparing meals together. Each shared task built trust. Each conversation brought them closer. Lily began to see Jake not just as her protector, but as someone who genuinely cared for her well-being. Jake, in turn, learned more about Lily's courage. Despite the fear in her eyes, she faced each day with determination, helping on the ranch and pushing herself to regain strength. He admired her resilience, the way she refused to let her past define her, but the sense of impending danger never fully disappeared. Jake knew that the note was more than just a warning. It was a reminder that someone from Lily's past still had intentions to harm her. He couldn't ignore it, and neither could she. Together, they made a plan. Jake would continue to gather information quietly, while Lily focused on healing and regaining her strength. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the stars, Lily spoke softly. "I never thought I'd find someone who would care for me like this," she admitted. Jake looked at her, his eyes filled with determination and empathy. "You deserve to be safe," he said simply, "and I'll make sure you are." As the night settled over the ranch, a sense of cautious hope began to grow between them. They were no longer just a cowboy and a mail-order bride. They were partners, united by shared struggles and a growing trust. The road ahead would be difficult, filled with questions, investigations, and challenges. But for the first time, they felt they could face it together. The sheriff's investigation continued in the background, with Jake providing any information he could find. He knew that uncovering the truth would take time, patience, and careful planning. He also knew that he couldn't let Lily live in fear until the danger was gone. Each day he strengthened the ranch, taught Lily how to protect herself, and made sure she felt empowered rather than frightened. Through it all, Lily began to reclaim her voice. She spoke more openly about her past, sharing details that had been locked away for years. She described the control her family had exerted over her, the moments of fear that had shaped her, and the hope she had held onto for a better life. Jake listened, never interrupting, never judging, offering only support and understanding. Their bond deepened with each passing day. The shared experiences, the moments of vulnerability, and the quiet understanding created a connection that neither had expected. They laughed together, shared stories of their past, and slowly began to imagine a future where they could both feel safe and happy. Yet, the warning in the note remained. Someone was still out there, and Jake knew that the time would come when they would have to confront it. But for now, they focused on the present, on healing, on building trust, and on creating a safe space where Lily could finally begin to feel at home. As the sun set over the plains, casting long shadows across the fields, Jake looked at Lily with a sense of determination. He would protect her, guide her, and stand by her side no matter what challenges lay ahead. And Lily, feeling the warmth of his presence and the strength of his resolve, began to believe that maybe, just maybe, she could finally have the life she had dreamed of, a life filled with safety, trust, and hope. The note had changed everything. It had brought fear and uncertainty, but it had also brought them together. And as they faced the days ahead, Jake and Lily knew that whatever threats lingered from the past, they would face them not as a stranger and a bride, but as partners standing together against the world. The days on the ranch had grown longer, filled with both work and a quiet tension that neither Jake nor Lily could ignore. Each morning, the sun rose over the plains, casting golden light on the fences and fields, but the beauty of the land was shadowed by the knowledge that danger could still be near. Jake had strengthened the locks, checked every corner of the property, and kept watch late into the night. Every creak in the barn, every rustle in the bushes, made his heart race. He couldn't allow anyone to harm Lily again, and he was determined to be ready for anything. Lily had started to regain her strength. Her bruises were fading, and the soreness in her body was slowly leaving, replaced with a quiet resilience. She worked alongside Jake, mending fences, feeding the animals, and helping with chores around the ranch. Each day she felt a little more confident, a little more in control of her life. Jake noticed the change and felt a mix of relief and pride. She was no longer just a frightened woman hiding from the world. She was becoming a partner, someone capable and strong. Despite the progress, the shadow of the note still lingered. Jake couldn't shake the warning that someone from Lily's past was watching, waiting for the right moment. They both knew it wasn't just fear or imagination, it was real. And Jake had a plan. He began preparing the ranch for the possibility of confrontation. He repaired fences, placed lights around key areas, and even set up a few simple alarms. Every precaution was taken, but he also knew that preparation alone wouldn't be enough. He needed courage, vigilance, and quick thinking if the danger came to them. One evening, as the sky turned shades of pink and orange, Lily and Jake sat on the porch. The air was warm, the smell of hay and earth filling their senses, and for a brief moment it felt as though the world was calm. But Jake's instincts told him otherwise. He had noticed footprints near the edge of the property, small disturbances in the grass that suggested someone had been there recently. His hand rested lightly on his side, where he kept a small tool for protection, just in case. "Do you think they'll come back?" Lily asked quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. She had grown stronger, but the fear in her eyes was still there. Jake took a deep breath. "I don't know," he admitted, "but we'll be ready if they do. You're not facing this alone." She nodded, drawing strength from his words. "I want to help," she said. "I want to be strong, not just hiding." Jake smiled softly. "You already are, you've come so far, and together we'll face whatever comes." The days passed, each one filled with preparation, work, and cautious hope. Lily continued to share fragments of her past, stories that revealed the depth of her fear and the strength she had shown in surviving it. Jake listened, learning more about the person she was, the struggles she had endured, and the courage that had brought her this far. Each story brought them closer, building trust and understanding that neither had expected. Then one night, the warning became real. A shadow moved near the edge of the ranch, barely visible in the moonlight. Jake saw it first, his sharp eyes catching the movement. He stood silently, motioning for Lily to stay calm and quiet. The figure moved closer, slow and deliberate, and Jake felt the familiar surge of protectiveness and fear. He stepped forward, calling out in a firm voice, "Who's there? Show yourself." The figure froze, then took a hesitant step forward. It was someone from Lily's past, someone she had feared, someone who had tried to control her life. The sight of them made her stomach tighten, fear and anger mixing together. Jake stepped closer to her, a silent promise that he would not let them harm her. The confrontation was tense, filled with words that cut deep and accusations that had been left unspoken for years. Lily spoke up, her voice stronger than she had expected. She told the person that she was no longer under their control, that she had made her own choices, and that she would not be intimidated. Jake stood beside her, silent but unwavering, ready to step in if the situation turned dangerous. The figure was taken aback by her courage. They had expected fear, hesitation, maybe even submission, but what they saw instead was a woman who had survived, who had reclaimed her life, and who had the support of someone willing to fight for her. For a moment the tension hung thick in the air, neither side moving, neither side speaking. Then, slowly, the figure retreated, disappearing into the darkness. Lily let out a shaky breath, her body trembling from the adrenaline and relief. Jake wrapped an arm around her, holding her close, feeling her fear begin to fade. "You did it," he said softly. "You stood up to them. I'm proud of you." Lily leaned into him, feeling the warmth and safety he provided. "I couldn't have done it without you," she admitted. "You've been here for me every step of the way." The next days were filled with reflection and quiet rebuilding. Jake and Lily worked on the ranch together, repairing fences and reinforcing doors, but now there was a new layer to their relationship. They were no longer just a cowboy and a mail-order bride. They were a team, partners facing the world together. The shared experience of fear, courage, and survival had bonded them in ways neither could have imagined. Lily continued to reclaim her voice, speaking more openly about her past and her dreams for the future. She talked about the life she wanted to build, a life of freedom and trust, and Jake listened, supporting her every step. He admired her resilience, the way she faced her fears, and the strength she had shown in confronting the person who had tried to control her. Jake also reflected on his own journey. He had come to the ranch seeking companionship, perhaps even love, but he had found something deeper, a connection built on trust, respect, and shared strength. He realized that Lily's courage had inspired him, just as his protection had given her hope. Together, they were learning what it meant to rely on someone else, to share their fears and their victories, and to face the future side by side. Even as they found peace, the memory of the confrontation remained. It was a reminder that the world could be harsh and unpredictable, that danger could appear even in the most peaceful places. But it was also a reminder of their own strength, of the courage they had discovered in each other, and of the bond that had grown between them. As they stood on the porch one evening watching the sun set over the plains, Jake turned to Lily. "We've faced a lot already," he said softly, "but I know we can face whatever comes next." Lily smiled, a mixture of relief and determination in her eyes. "Yes," she agreed. "We can, together." The ranch, once a place of solitude and hard work, had become something more, a place of safety, healing, and shared courage. The challenges they had faced had tested them, but they had emerged stronger, more connected, and ready to face the future. And while the horizon held unknowns, the fear and uncertainty that had once dominated their lives were beginning to give way to hope. They had survived, they had confronted danger, and they had done it together. Jake and Lily knew that the road ahead would not be without challenges. There would be moments of doubt, fear, and uncertainty, but they also knew that they had discovered something rare, a partnership built on trust, respect, and shared strength. And as they faced the nights together on the ranch, listening to the wind through the trees and the soft sounds of the animals settling in for the evening, they knew that whatever came next, they would face it side by side. The experience had changed them both. Lily had found courage she didn't know she had, and Jake had found a sense of purpose beyond the ranch itself. They were no longer two people bound by circumstance. They were a team, connected by survival, trust, and the determination to protect what mattered most. As the stars appeared in the sky, bright against the darkness, they sat together on the porch, holding hands, knowing that the challenges of the past had prepared them for the future. And while the past still lingered in memory, it no longer held power over them. They were free, strong, and united, ready to face whatever the world might bring together. The days after the confrontation passed with a quiet intensity. The ranch seemed almost peaceful, but Jake and Lily knew that peace could be fragile. Every creak of the barn, every rustle in the trees, reminded them that the past was never far behind. Yet with each passing day, Lily's strength grew and Jake's confidence in protecting her never wavered. They had faced fear together, and now it was time to face the future. Lily had started to move freely around the ranch, checking fences, feeding the animals, and helping with chores without hesitation. She had begun to trust the rhythm of life here and to trust Jake completely. The bruises on her skin were fading, but what remained was her spirit, strong, determined, and ready to claim the life she had fought for. One morning, a letter arrived from the sheriff. It was short but clear. The person who had threatened Lily had been found. They had tried to run, but the authorities tracked them down and were ensuring they could no longer pose a threat. Relief washed over both Jake and Lily as they read the words. It was over. The danger that had haunted them was gone, and justice had been served. For Lily, it was more than just safety. It was freedom. She could finally breathe without fear, think about the future without being haunted by the past, and live without someone controlling her every move. For Jake, it was the confirmation that his instincts had been right, that his determination to protect her had made a difference, and that their lives could finally move forward without constant worry. The following days were filled with work, yes, but also with planning and dreaming. Lily and Jake repaired fences, cleared land, and tended to the animals, but they also began to talk about the future in a way they never had before. What kind of life did they want to build together? How could they make the ranch not just a place of work, but a home full of warmth and happiness? Lily spoke of planting a garden, of having a small orchard with fruit trees, and of having a cozy spot where they could sit together in the evenings. Jake listened, smiling at her ideas, and offered his own. Maybe a small cabin extension, a place where visitors could stay, or even a little pond for the animals and for relaxation. They laughed together, imagining the possibilities, and for the first time in weeks, the fear and tension were replaced with hope and excitement. Despite the peace, they continued to reflect on what they had endured. They talked about the moments of fear, the nights spent awake listening for danger, and the courage it had taken to face it all. Lily admitted that she had been terrified when she first arrived at the ranch, but she had also felt a glimmer of hope when Jake had taken her in and protected her. "You didn't just save me from them," she said softly one evening. "You gave me a chance to live." Jake felt a lump in his throat. "I couldn't have done it without you," he replied. "You showed more strength than I could have imagined. You faced your fear and you survived. That's something no one can take away from you." Their bond had deepened through the shared experience of danger and survival. It was no longer just a connection formed out of circumstance. It was a partnership built on trust, respect, and mutual strength. They had learned to rely on each other, to communicate without fear, and to face challenges as a team. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the sky turned shades of pink and gold, Jake and Lily sat on the porch together. The air was warm, and the scent of the land filled their senses. They watched the cattle grazing peacefully and listened to the soft sounds of the ranch settling for the night. For the first time, they allowed themselves to imagine a future without fear, a life where they could simply be happy. Lily leaned her head on Jake's shoulder. "I never thought I'd find someone like you," she whispered. "Someone who would care so much, who would protect me, and who would let me grow." Jake wrapped an arm around her, holding her close. "You've taught me just as much as I've taught you," he said softly. "You've shown me what it means to be brave, to trust, and to fight for what matters. I couldn't ask for a better partner." As the days turned into weeks, they continued to build their life together. The ranch became more than a place of work. It became a home, a sanctuary, and a symbol of resilience. They planted the garden Lily had dreamed of, set up the little cabin extension, and even created a small pond where they could relax in the evenings. Each task they completed together strengthened their bond, reminding them that they were no longer two individuals facing life alone, but a team ready to face anything together. The memory of the note that had first caused fear and uncertainty remained, but its meaning had changed. It was no longer a symbol of danger or despair. It had become a reminder of survival, of courage, and of the journey that had brought them together. They had faced the darkness, confronted the threats from the past, and emerged stronger and more united than ever. Jake and Lily began to talk about long-term plans. They discussed expanding the ranch, caring for more animals, and even helping others in the community who might be in difficult situations. Their shared experience had given them perspective and empathy, and they wanted to use their strength to support others. One morning, as they worked together in the garden, Lily paused to look at Jake. "I feel free," she said, a smile lighting up her face. "I've never felt this way before. I can finally be myself, make my own choices, and live without fear." Jake smiled, his heart full. "And I'm glad you're here with me," he said. "We've both been through a lot, but look at us now. We're building something real, something lasting." Their days became a rhythm of work, rest, and quiet moments together. They shared meals, laughter, and stories late into the night. The ranch was no longer just land and fences. It was a life they were building together, a life filled with trust, respect, and love. Even when challenges arose, they faced them together. A sick animal, a broken fence, or a sudden storm were no longer reasons for fear or panic, but opportunities to work as a team. Each obstacle they overcame strengthened their bond, proving that they could rely on each other no matter what. The past, once filled with fear and uncertainty, no longer controlled their lives. Lily had reclaimed her independence, and Jake had found the partnership he had always hoped for. Together, they had created a life of safety, hope, and happiness, something neither of them had imagined when Lily first arrived at the ranch. One evening, as the sun set and the sky was painted in shades of orange and purple, Jake and Lily sat together on the porch, holding hands and watching the land they had worked so hard to care for. The wind whispered through the trees, and the soft sounds of the animals settling in for the night filled the air. It was peaceful, quiet, and perfect. Lily turned to Jake, her eyes reflecting the colors of the sunset. "I never imagined life could be like this," she said softly. "I'm grateful for every moment, even the hard ones, because they led me here, to you, to this life, to this peace." Jake squeezed her hand gently. "And I'm grateful too," he said. "We've faced so much, but we've come through it together. That's what matters. That's what makes this life real." As darkness fell over the plains, they remained on the porch, side by side. The challenges of the past were behind them, the dangers had been faced, and the future stretched out before them, wide and full of possibility. They had survived, grown stronger, and found a love built on trust, courage, and shared experience. In the quiet of the night, with the stars shining above and the ranch peaceful around them, Jake and Lily felt a deep sense of fulfillment. They had faced the darkness together, and now they could embrace the light of a life built on hope, resilience, and partnership. The note that had once brought fear now served as a symbol of strength. It reminded them of the challenges they had overcome, the courage they had shown, and the life they had built together. It was no longer a warning. It was a testament to survival, to love, and to the power of standing together in the face of adversity. Jake looked at Lily, her face calm and peaceful in the soft moonlight, and knew that no matter what challenges the future might hold, they would face them together. They had come through fear, danger, and uncertainty, and now they were stronger than ever. The ranch, the land, and the life they had built were theirs, not because of luck, but because of courage, trust, and the bond they shared. Lily rested her head on Jake's shoulder, feeling the warmth of his presence and the security of his strength. "I feel at home," she whispered. "Here with you I finally feel at home." Jake smiled, holding her close. "You are home," he said, "and this is just the beginning of our life together. Whatever comes, we'll face it side by side." And as they watched the stars twinkle above the Texas plains, they knew it was true. They had survived the past, embraced the present, and were ready for whatever the future might bring. Together, they had found safety, love, and hope, and they would never let go of it. The horizon stretched wide before them, endless and full of possibility. For the first time in a long while, both Jake and Lily felt truly free. The past had shaped them, but it did not define them. They had each other, the ranch, and the promise of a life built on trust, courage, and partnership. And with that, their story had reached a new beginning, one filled with hope, resilience, and the quiet happiness of a life finally lived on their own terms.